Instead, spend all your time, these 4 weeks, preparing for verbal and decision making. This is why you need to maximize your score. And why is it possible? Because verbal has a huge variety of questions. Huge variety. So unlike CAT, which has become very skewed, only RC questions predominant, the other ones like parajumbles are without options, summary based questions have decent subjectivity involved, but here you have questions which are straight based upon your grammar. Grammar errors, the standard ones. Sometimes these errors are as simple as in parallelism. A line is given in 4-5 different ways and which of them is perfect. So the questions are not very tough over here, or subject-verb agreement errors are there. So I think so it's a pretty doable one. So you have questions on vocabulary. You have a type fill in the blanks, and those fill in the blanks could either be vocab based or they're simple English usage based. By English usage, what do I mean? They're just based upon prepositions, effect. Now these are not even vocab words, right? It's just general usage. You should know when to use effect, when to use effect, or transition words. So I think so it's a very comfortable scoring place there. What else? You have grammar, you have reading comprehension, obviously, and whenever reading comprehension comes, this point comes in, there's a poem. One of the passages is a poem. Yes, it is a poem, but it does not really change a lot of stuff. A pointer towards how do you spend? Spend 1 day preparing, or take all the previous years XAT. Thankfully, students, XAT papers are available from 2008 to 2020. So there are 13 question papers. So in these 2 weeks, students, if you just solve a paper and analyze it one every day, still 2 weeks are consumed here. Okay, so I'll say take all of them, collect all the poem RCs that have been asked, sit and understand it thoroughly in 1 day. What? A poem is just that it can be interpreted in a lot more ways, right? It uses words to represent something else in the real world. Yeah, that's an analogy or so on. So these are just overall ideas that I'm giving you. So frame your whole idea. Okay, maybe reading the poem you might not get a lot of meaning, but when you read the question and when you read the options, that is the time when you start understanding, what is the author, or at least the question paper setter, what is he interpreting from the poem? He's using this word as a representative of something else, right? So I think so you should do that. Yeah, the next day sit, read, go on the net, read a few of the classic poems, see, compare notes. There would be some spark notes, or there would be some understanding of the poem. Build that. So 2 days goes out over there. But then it would be far more productive than spending time in a new QA topic. Okay, so do such things in your preparation. What else? Just critical reasoning, a very nice scoring topic. Yeah, and your standard theory of critical reasoning, conclusions, assumptions. So I think so there's a lot less subjectivity involved here than the summary types or so on. So I think so again, if you have ignored grammar or critical reasoning because they were not very heavy in CAT, then now is the time that you need to spend a day, or as in grammar can be done in couple of days. CR you need at least to spend 4-5 days. Solve all CR questions from your official guide of GMAT. It would be much scoring. So I think so this is where you should be spending these 3 weeks, 4 weeks. What else? In decision making. Now I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about the types of questions in decision making. You can get that from a lot of videos, or anyways you're going to attempt these question papers, so you'll get an first-hand idea. All I'll say is that they are case study kind of a thing, or more importantly, the salient features is, for me, the big thing that stands out in decision making is decision making on an average, each question has 144 words per question. And if I want to again translate this into an average number of lines, I've already said 16 words per line. So that makes it 9 lines per question. Okay, so if I have a set of 3 questions, so the 3 questions means it is a 27 lines per set. So this is almost, for me, it is a question of how good can your reading and comprehension be. Right, your first thing has to be reading. So what I'm trying to build here is, throughout the XAT paper, students, whether it's verbal, whether it is decision making, whether it is quant, there is a lot to read. Read. So that is one skill that you need to possess. How fast can you read and how well can you comprehend in one reading? It will help you lots. Now it's unfortunate that that can't be done in 3-4 weeks time. But make a start somewhere. You'll have to improve your reading speed, right? So this is of more importance to me. You know, each question long. So you will not realize how time passes. Right? These are the takeaways that we are. So once we have a fact, what is its relevance? You will not realize how quickly time passes. And remember, time management is on your shoulders. So you mess up a little, time management. So what happens is, it's an advantage if you can use it to your benefit. Right? But then the disadvantage of time management lying on your shoulders is, if you do not manage it well, you might end up reaching the third section with very little time left, and you'll be worried. The third section is quant. Anyways, it's a tough one. You'll be hugely worried about clearing the cutoff. And if you don't clear the quant cutoff, which is anyways higher than for all these sections, okay, so you'll not get a call. So the strategy of attempting the paper becomes all the more important, and for them you need to realize all these small points of how one of the important thing in this should be quickly keep moving ahead. So how do you prepare for DM? Students, in these 13 question paper, you are going to get about 140 DM questions. The only way to do is collect these 140 DM questions and practice them. It is going to take you a decent amount of time. Okay, and there is no theory of decision making anywhere in the world. So the best that you can do is, you can look at the answers and try to make sense of how to find options which are very extreme, of how to limit yourself to the facts given, how to focus more on the objective that is asked in the passage rather than your gut feel or any of such random logics. So there's one more point when we talk about these two sections that I want to talk, and again a very significant one. So you must be aware that there is negative marking for unattempted questions at the rate of 0.1 per question beyond 8 unattempted questions. Now, a point here that a lot of people suggest is that one should ignore this fact, because if you take this into account, and because there is negative marking, you randomly mark something, the chances of you getting it wrong is high, and instead of minus 0.1, you'll end up getting minus 0.25, because a wrong answer gets a minus 0.25. So there are a few of them who suggest that just ignore this point and they'll continue the paper as if this point doesn't exist. Well, that may not be the best use of this point. It can be used very intelligently. How? Rather than me suggesting you, I'll show it to you. It will appear far more convincing. So We have verbal decision making QA. The total number of questions. Let's look at the number of attempts that we have thought about. To clear the sectional cutoffs, I need 12 to 15, on an average 13 and a half. Let's say 4 more questions to get to that overall 96 percentile. 13 and a half, 14 and a half, and 4, 17 and a half. Let's round it to 18, higher up. Here, attempts need to be 11 to 14, 12 and a half on an average, plus 4, 16 and a half. Let's round it down to 16. And here I need to attempt 10 to 16. We said 16 at the higher end. So this is what I'm attempting. So let's look at the unattempted. And in the unattempted, you'll have 18, 8 unattempted, here 5 unattempted, 12 unattempted, total marks 13, 12, 25. So 25 questions. 8 of them will not be penalized, 17 will be penalized at this rate, so you'll get minus 1.7. Here, whatever you have attempted, you'll get some marks, I do not know, based upon your accuracy or so on, and you'll get a minus 1.7 marks. So this is what will end up. Now, versus what I'm suggesting is, in sections like verbal and decision making, almost for all the questions, whether it's a grammar question, whether it's a fill in the blank question, whether it's an RC question, CR question, I'm pretty sure 2 options can be eliminated. Even for all decision making questions, two options can very comfortably be eliminated. I hope you agree, right? So a lot of time in RC and so on, we have this, I could narrow it down to 2 choices. If you can narrow it down to 2 choices, excellent. I'm saying even if you can narrow it down to 3 choices out of the 5. Okay, in XAT there are 5 choices, yeah? You narrow it down to 3. I would suggest that in verbal and DM, please mark one of them, even if you're not certain. So these are the ones that I'm saying where you have given it your reasonable best and you're marking where you are thinking that my accuracy level is going to be more than 80%. I'm saying in the unattempted ones, which you would be tempted to leave out, I would still say mark it. So let's compare, and let's say you don't do it for everything. So let's say you have attempted, I'm saying these 18 that you would do, and out of these, let's say you attempt 5 more. So the unattempted ones are going to be 3. You have done 16 once, but to reach your percentile, 5 more is there. Let's say you attempt 3 of them. So 2 is left. Some questions of DM or grammar you might not make any sense, so just leave them if you can't eliminate any options. But the others you should attempt them. In Quant, it is not possible, students. In Quant, it's very difficult to eliminate 2 options. Either you get a question or you don't get it. Yeah, very, very rarely can you eliminate options over there, right? So I'll just leave it as it is. So you attempt 16 questions, nothing more, and 12 questions are left unattempted. So let's compare this scenario. Here, whatever marks you're going to get that X marks as before. There's no difference there. Now, here you have 8 more attempts. Let's look at the negative marking first, unattempted. 12 and 5, 17 questions. 8 will go unpenalized. You will be penalized is 9. 9 you'll get a minus 0.9. Okay, so let's put this. Now, in these 8 questions that you have attempted, I'm saying a pretty worst scenario is that out of the 8, you get 7 of them you get wrong and only 1 you get correct. Is there space enough? Yeah, let me write it a little above. So out of these 8 questions, 7 of them you get wrong and 1 you get right. Now, if all 8 you get wrong, then there's no point in this analysis. Then you're obviously at a disadvantage, right? But I'm saying even if you get just 1 of them right, And remember, these are not random guesses. I'm coming back and telling you, you're doing that only in questions where you have eliminated two extreme choices, right? Okay, so then also what's going to happen in here, you're going to get a minus 1.75. Here you're going to get a plus 1. So the net of it is going to be just a minus 0.75. So your score is going to be your x minus 0.75 and minus 0.9 is going to be x minus 1.65. So even in as bad scenario as getting only 1 out of the 8 correct, you end up being in a better position than the previous score. Right? Minus 0.75 and minus 0.9 is going to be 1.65. And so your downside, in fact, there's no downside. Even if you get one of them right, you end up being in a better score. But the upside is, let's say on the other hand, if you get 5 of them correct or only 3 wrong, 3 wrong, 5 of them correct. Yeah, you can be even more luckier. I'm just taking somewhere a middle, a little to the better of the middle. So that 3 wrong will end up being minus 0.75. The 5 correct will end up with a plus 5. So you are going to get a plus 4.5. Sorry, 4.25. And a minus 0.9. So your net score is going to be that x and plus 3.35. And instead of x minus 1.7, you have x plus 3.35. That means your score has gone up by 5 marks. And 5 marks is a huge thing, students. 5 marks is a big difference here, right? So, so I hope you appreciate this analysis there. So the message is, because there is also negative marking for unattempted, the risk involved in taking an educated guess is not as high, students. Even if you don't take a risk of that, you'll still end up with negative, right? So I would surely suggest that in the 2 sections of verbal and decision making, I would be going ahead and any question, it's also a question of time saving. Trying to be precise between 2 options, you might end up spending more time. So rather than that, I would just recollect this analysis and say, is it worthwhile spending more time than trying to get one of them correct? Or rather, I'll just mark one of them and move ahead. Right? So it does make a huge difference to the way you attempt your paper. Right? So that's all that I have to say in that. So spend the remaining days, I think so, building up skills in verbal, in decision making. Spend good number, full 2 weeks in only sitting and analyzing every individual question of an actual XAT paper that has come. Spend 2 days learning all about poems that you can. Decision making, spend a separate another 2-3 days on just decision making, and take mocks. Spend a lot of time in identifying what is the ideal time distribution. How do you, these markings that you do, you should not be doing it at the end. While you are going through the paper, you should be doing it. Yeah, there's no coming back or so on in that case, right? So that's it. Thank you.